Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Today's Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. Hereby call the Higher Education Committee to order. Let's start out. Madam Secretary, if you would please take the roll.
Representatives Baum, Cochran, Darby, Gillespie, Hakeem, Parkinson, Chairman White, Chairman Lafferty. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you for that. Before we get underway, are there any personal orders to start? Seeing none, we'll move on to the calendar. We have, first up, Representative Bud Halsey. We have an amendment I'm seeing has been filed. I'll give you a second to get settled. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me can I get a motion on the bill? And a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. We are underway. Representative Halsey, I'm seeing that the bill has been amended, and I'm looking at the code 012037. Is that what you got?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and that's correct. And all that amendment does is, from last year, it moves the effective date up to July 1st, 2022.
Thank you for that. And can I get a motion and a second on the amendment? And we got a second. All right, wonderful. There we go. Representative Halsey, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. This bill is intended to reduce the financial barrier that homeschool students encounter when they're qualifying for the General Assembly Merit Program or Scholarship. The General Assembly Merit Scholarship awards $1,500 supplement to the Hope Scholarship for our highest performing students. And currently, to be eligible for the General Assembly's Merit Scholarship, a homeschool student has to meet all requirements for a Tennessee Hope Scholarship, attain an ACT score of at least 29 on any single ACT test date or a concordant equivalent score on the SAT, and while in high school, enroll in at least 4 dual enrollment courses, which are 12 credit hours, participate in a governor's school program, and achieve a cumulative grade point average of at least 3.0, and take 2 AP examinations, scoring at least 3 on both, or take a CLIP test, achieving at least a score of 55. What this bill would do would be reduce the financial burden on homeschool families by lowering the requirement for dual enrollment from 4 courses down to 2 courses. Currently, the dual enrollment grants offered by the state only fully fund the first 2 general education courses, and reducing the number of AP exams needed to qualify from 2 down to 1. Each exam currently costs $95. So that's what this bill does, and I don't know how the process, I'm going to plead ignorance because I know there's a lottery board. I don't know how that works. In fact, I have never dealt with anything in higher education other than to make some of them mad at me. So I'm really ignorant on how this works, but I'm pleading my case.
Okay. Representative Halsey, since this bill would require funding to come from the lottery calendar, from the lottery funds, it would need to be rolled to the lottery calendar. What we can do for you today is go ahead and adopt the amendment and put it on there, and then proceed to the lottery calendar at the end of the year.
That's very good. Thank you.
Okay. With that said, do I have a motion on adoption of the amendment? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. And the ayes have it. All right. Thank you, Representative
Thank you,
Halsey.
Mr. Chairman. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
committee.
And we'll roll the bill to the lottery calendar. All right, we've got that out of the way. We have some presenters today that have come by. If you all would like to go ahead and make your way to the front. We're going to try and get a little color and a little background, how the money comes into the lottery, how it goes out from the lottery, and be careful, and all points in between. If you would, please, when you're ready, introduce yourselves for the record, and feel free to proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Paul, and I am the CEO of the Tennessee Education Lottery Corporation. And with me is Andy Davis, who is our Chief Financial Officer as well as our Chief Technology Officer. So Andy has been with us since the beginning, as I have, so we've both been here for 18 years. We celebrated our 18th anniversary on January the 20th.
At your pace, just take this where you want to go with it, and we'll follow up questions as we go.
Sure, and we'll keep our presentation very short because we're basically here to answer any questions that you all might have. I'm going to give a quick overview of what we've done over the last 18 years. Andy will take us through the projections that we have for the next fiscal year. So since inception, which was January 20th of 2004, we've raised $25.2 billion. Revenues for games that are only played in Tennessee are $22.3 billion. That consists of our instant ticket revenue, which makes up the vast majority of our games, of our sales, and that's $20.1 billion, or almost 80% of gross revenues. The draw-style games, where you pick numbers and we draw numbers, are about $2.1 billion, or 8.6% of gross revenues. Then the third category is multi-jurisdictional games like Powerball and Mega Millions and Lotto America, and those represent $3 billion, or 11.6% of total revenues. Since inception, we've raised over $6.2 billion for the education programs that we fund, with over $6 billion going to scholarships and grants, and $236.7 million going to after-school programs. For the 10-year period ending July 30th, 2021, gross revenues, which would be our sales, have increased on an average of 5.8% a year. Since our first full fiscal year, instant ticket revenues, which, as I said, is about 80% of our sales, have increased at an average of 6.9% annually, with a corresponding increase in gross profits from our instant tickets averaging 5.7% annually. Actual gross profits from instant games have increased year over year, more than doubling from the $153 million returned our first fiscal year to $365 million last fiscal year. For the 10-year period ending June 30th, the Lottery for Education proceeds funding from all of our lottery products increased an average of 5.6% every year. We believe that's a national record. Most lotteries don't keep a consistent growth level for 18 years, so we're very pleased with what has happened thus far. And Andy's going to take you through the revenue estimates that we've shared with both the funding board and the governor's office. Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon. What I would like to do, obviously, is to go over the presentation that I have here that pretty much summarizes all of our expectations for this fiscal year, which is fiscal year 2022. Our estimation of fiscal year 2022 revenues and net lottery proceeds consist of revenues from our three major categories that Rebecca just mentioned, which is our instant ticket games sold exclusively here in Tennessee, our Tennessee-only draw-style games, which is Cash 3, Cash 4, Tennessee Cash, and Keno to Go, and then our multi-jurisdictional draw games, which is Powerball, Mega Millions, Lotto America, and Cash for Life. As Rebecca indicated, Instance is projected this year to be our largest contributor to our gross revenues. Our current projections for this year show Instance will be approximately 85% of our estimated revenues, and our gross revenues for the games are estimated between $1.72 and $1.78 billion this fiscal year. We average on a weekly basis between 33 and 34 million on our instant products, and the revenue drivers specific to those products include, but are not limited to, the game design, our player preferences in terms of prize payouts, our marketing of the games, and how we optimize the availability of those products in our retail distribution network. Current retail distribution network is about 5,500 retailers throughout the state of Tennessee. We currently this year plan to launch approximately 55 games on an instant game category, and the price of those is going to be between $1 price point and a $30 price point. So we give lots of variety to the players so that they can choose which games are more exciting and entertaining to them. Our Tennessee-only draw-style games is projected to provide about 8% of our estimated revenues this fiscal year. Gross revenues for that category is projected at between $169 to $171 million, with daily cash 3 and cash 4, which make up an estimated $136 million of that total. So they are the most significant game drivers of that category. In terms of our multi-jurisdictional draw-style games, they're currently expected to provide about 7% of our estimated total. Gross revenues estimated in that category between $157 to $160 million. Primary driver for those category of games is obviously the large size of the jackpots for Powerball and Mega Millions. Powerball jackpot cycles the game is designed to provide average jackpot cycles of between 300 and 400 million, approximately 2 to 3 times a year. Our current projected weekly sales for that game is 1.6 million. Mega Millions jackpot game design identifies or project jackpot cycles of 250 to 300 million, and we this year projecting between 900 and 1 million on a weekly basis for that game. The other two games, Lotto America is a smaller jackpot game, and Cash for Life is what's called an annuity-style game, which allows for 2 for-life games that are paid through annuity payments on an annual basis. We project those to provide about $400,000 this fiscal year. $400,000, on a weekly basis this fiscal year. Our gross ticket revenue estimates this year is $2 billion, $50 million to $2 billion, $166 million across all of those game categories. When we look at our expenses, there's two major categories: direct gaming expenses, which are directly related to our estimated revenues across all games, and our non-direct expenses. On our direct gaming expenses, we have prize expenses makes up the larger component of that line item. This year projected at $1.23 to $1.27 billion in prizes. Instant game as a percent of revenue prize payout is projected about 68% of revenues, with Tennessee draw-style games at 50% and multi-jurisdictional draw games at 51% of revenues. Retailer commissions is the second largest category, and it's at 6.5% of gross revenues in accordance with the statute requirements. And the payments of those are estimated at $133.7 to $138.1 million for fiscal year 2022. Major gaming vendor fees as a percent of revenue are at 2.7%, which is in the range of $38 to $40 million. Those costs are specifically directed to our two major gaming vendors, which is IGT for our draw-style games and distribution network, and Scientific Games for our instant ticket production and distribution network under contract with those two vendors. The non-direct expenses, we're budgeting this year at $35.5 million, which is about 1.7% of revenue. And that covers all of the remaining costs of doing business, which includes all of our general administrative, advertising, and any other retailer support expenses that we project for this fiscal year. In terms of our education funding for this fiscal year, we're projecting a range of between $468 to $483 million. And our after-school program proceeds, which are generated through unclaimed prizes, between $17 and $18 million for this fiscal year. For fiscal year 2023 and the 3 succeeding years, we currently project conservatively between 2 and 2.5% growth. And as you will see on the chart, fiscal year 2023 will project a range between $476 to $493 million in net lottery proceeds and $18 million in after-school program proceeds, which is the maximum that program would receive funding through in accordance with the current statute. That's a quick summary or an overview of our projections for this fiscal year, and we're open for questions.
Very well done, thank you. A lot of numbers there to go through. Representative Gillespie, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. That was a lot of numbers, but while we got that up right now, the after-school programs proceeds, can you just, I know you said that comes from unclaimed prizes, but can you elaborate on that just a little bit more of what that actually is funding?
Yeah. All right. In terms of what it funds, it's the after-school programs that was approved by the legislature at the time that the lottery was implemented. So that would be the after-school programs at different counties as determined by the program's administrator, and we are not the administrator. We just transfer the funds over to them.
I believe the program's administered by a organization called LEAP, and we just turn the money over to the after-school program account or to the Lottery for Education account. So we raise the money, you all spend it.
Thank you for that. Representative Hakeem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I too would like to thank you for the hard work you do, and to be doing this for 18 years, and I've never heard a negative word about how things are accounted or the work that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Am I correct in, I don't know if it was from the beginning or just the last 5 years, that it's been on average about 5% a year increase in the, I guess, the amount of participation or the numbers of funds collected?
But that's an average, and some years it's higher than that because we've had $1 billion jackpot in either Mega Millions or Powerball. Some years it's lower than that. So our averages have been about 5.6% for the last 10 years.
Okay. Was there a dip in 2020, 2021, you know, with COVID and everything? I didn't know.
Actually, there was an increase. What we saw was, in particular, along the Kentucky border and the Mississippi border, as casinos closed and bingo halls closed, people bought lottery tickets instead and have continued to play. So we had our best year ever during that fiscal year. So, and that's with sports betting starting. So, you know, our biggest concern moving forward, which is one of the reasons we're only projecting 2.5% growth or so, is last year there was over $2 billion in sports betting wagering that had to come from somewhere. So, you know, would we have had more growth had we not had online sports betting? You never know, but we're concerned about what a full fiscal year of that will do to us for the next fiscal year. So we'll see what happens, but COVID did not have a negative impact on us.
Okay, one last question, if I may. For persons who, I guess, play, I guess, the different games sparingly, can they go to your website as to, I guess, knowing when they win or how to win? Or, I guess some people get those tickets. You was talking about the monies that are not claimed, to know when they win. So if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Well, there are a couple of ways. You can download the Tennessee Lottery app, and you can actually check your ticket online on our app on your phone and see if you won or not. We have ticket checkers and retailers, so you can go in and put your ticket in yourself in the ticket checker, and it'll tell you whether or not you won. If you go to our website, it'll tell you what the winning numbers were drawn, but on an instant ticket, which is 80% of our sales, only you can determine whether or not you won based on what you've scratched and what you see. Now, you can check it, as I said, on our app or at a retailer, but the vast majority of our unclaimed prizes are $1 tickets, $2 tickets. There are people just don't bother to come in and claim. The other time we have relatively large unclaimed prizes is when you have a huge Powerball or Mega Millions jackpot. We had $1.6 billion in Powerball, $1.5 billion in Mega Millions, and when you have those kinds of numbers, everybody plays. So they don't realize, even though we try as hard as we can to say there are 9 ways to win, but if they don't win the jackpot and they see somebody else win the jackpot, then they never check their ticket. So again, a lot of those are $1 winners where you just got the Powerball or you just got the Mega Ball. So vast majority of our unclaimed prizes are $1 and $2 games.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr.
$1
Chairman.
or $2 prizes.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that question. I've got, anybody else, any questions? Representative Ball? Chairman Ball?
I'm just curious, how are Powerball and Mega Millions different?
Not very. Powerball is drawn 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Mega Millions is drawn twice a week on Tuesday and Friday. They both are $2 games. They both have very similar matrices. They both have a power play or a mega plier. The biggest difference is the organizations that operate them. Powerball is operated by 38 jurisdictions, and Mega Millions is operated by 10 jurisdictions. Both of those organizations have about the same population because the 10 states that operate Mega Millions are Illinois, Georgia, Michigan, your bigger states, where a lot of the 38 that operate Powerball are North Dakota and South Dakota and Wyoming. And of course, we also have Pennsylvania and Florida and Texas and Tennessee in the Powerball consortium. So it's more about how we operate and how we design games than it is that anything the player would ever see. But both games are sold in all states.
Any follow-up, Representative Baum? Oh, okay, sure thing. Anyone else? No, okay. I've got a couple. I think I already know the answer based on what you told Representative Gillespie. The dollars that come in go to multiple sources. Since we're in higher education, we'll talk about all of the Hope scholarships, the Promise, and there's several others. You all don't decide how those dollars are distributed into those different buckets, if you will. Is that correct?
Absolutely right.
Okay, so you just turn
We
it
just give it over to you all,
over. Okay,
happily.
all right. Right, more money, more problems, that's not saying. Did I hear you say $31 million to run the department or run the lottery corporation? Did I?
About $35 million in our non-direct expenses, which covers everything for running the rest of the organization, besides those 3 major categories for direct expenses.
Okay, so that's everything from employees to advertising to insurance, all of that?
Everything else that it would take to, rent, everything, telecommunications, all the infrastructure associated with running an organization goes out at $35 million.
Okay, approximately how many employees?
About 166.
Yeah, we're somewhere between, on average, we've averaged over the last 5 years between 165 and 170.
Okay, all right. Last part, this one gets, I've noticed being around here, I seem like I've always have these oddball little thoughts on things, but I was curious, you've got an advertising budget out of that $35 million. Have you ever noticed, has anybody ever charted how much money you spend on, say, television or radio advertising? And have there been periods where that advertising might be drawn back or increased so that you could see whether you sell more lottery tickets or less lottery tickets? And I'll just go ahead.
Our advertising budget is 7.8 million, but, so I'm not sure where 35 million came from. That's all of our expenses are 35 million, including advertising.
Okay.
That's everything. So our advertising budget's 7.8. We have never cut back. There are a handful of jurisdictions that have seen major decline in revenues and then went back to advertising. But those jurisdictions who have stopped advertising have done so at legislative mandates, not because of good business practices. So we believe if we cut back our advertising, it would have a negative impact. So our advertising includes the posters you see at the point of sale and television and radio, and so we have not pulled it back. It hasn't grown much over the years. We try and keep it at 1% of total revenues, so we haven't grown it. We haven't cut it back, but we've been pretty consistent.
Okay. The reason that I was asking, again, this is oddball things that go through my head sometimes. As the Lottery Corporation, you're a monopoly. You don't have any competition. But when you take to the airwaves and you take to the whether it's television or radio, we inadvertently end up competing with local advertisers, the guy that's selling you the mattress at midnight, your local McDonald's, people like that, which kind of drives up their cost for advertising. And I was just curious, do you have I know you said only a few jurisdictions have ever stopped the advertising, but do you have like a percentage that sales fell in those areas? You said significant. Do you have any more specific?
It's been years, so I'd have to go back and look, see if I can get that for you. But while we may be the only lottery product in town, we're not the only choice for that type of entertainment. Obviously, you have online sports betting, you have casinos in Tupelo and in Kentucky, you have, buses that go from Nashville to Kentucky to play bingo. You have a whole wide range of choices of entertainment dollars in the gaming space. So while there are no other lotteries, we don't have a monopoly on gaming entertainment dollars.
Okay, that's a good point. Good point. That's part of why I asked the question, just trying to see where it's at. Okay. I don't have any more questions. Anyone else on the committee? I don't see any more. Thank you, guys. Great job on the presentation today. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you.
With no more business before the committee, without objection, we will go ahead and adjourn. Any objections? We are adjourned. Was that too crazy a question?